Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. New York City. Isabella Torres was officially having the worst day of her life when she decided to do the stupidest thing possible: kiss a complete stranger. It all started when she spotted Jake, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years who had dumped her for a 22-year-old lifestyle blogger, shamelessly flirting with said blogger in the middle of the launch party for the hottest new rooftop bar in Soho. Isabella's blood boiled. Not from jealousy, at least. That's what she kept telling herself. But from the sheer audacity of him showing up at the exact party where she was celebrating landing her dream job at Sterling Creative, one of Manhattan's most prestigious advertising agencies. "That jerk is not going to ruin my night," she muttered, gripping her champagne flute tighter. That's when she saw him. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of outgrowth that suggested he had more important things to worry about than grooming, though the end result was devastatingly attractive. He stood alone at the bar, absently scrolling through his phone, wearing a navy dress shirt that hugged his broad shoulders perfectly. Perfect. Isabella took a deep breath, smoothed down the red dress she'd specifically chosen for tonight, and marched toward the stranger with the determination of someone about to commit calculated madness. "Excuse me," she said, moving close enough to catch his cologne, something woody that made her stomach do a traitorous little flip. "Could you help me with something?" He looked up from his phone, and Isabella almost lost her nerve. His eyes were a striking blue, green that seemed to shift like ocean waves under the bar's colored lights. And when he smiled a crooked, curious smile, she felt her knees go weak. "Sure," he replied, his voice deep and slightly gravelly. "What do you need? I need you to kiss me." The words tumbled out before she could second-guess herself. The stranger blinked, clearly surprised, and Isabella rushed to explain. "My ex is over there." She gestured vaguely toward Jake with his new girlfriend. "I just need him to see that I've moved on, too. Would you mind pretending for a few seconds?" The stranger followed her gaze quickly, spotting the couple who were being inconveniently obvious. When he looked back at Isabella, there was something amused in his eye. "Your ex doesn't have great taste, does he?" he said, giving Jake an appraising look. "Do you want just a quick peck or something more convincing?" Isabella's heart raced. Convincing would be great. "Then let's give them a show." He moved closer, one firm hand settling on her waist, the other rising to cup her face with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity of the moment. Isabella had exactly 1 second to notice that his eyes had tiny silver flecks before he kissed her. And what a kiss it was. This wasn't the theatrical kiss she'd imagined. This was something far more dangerous, hot, intense, with just the right amount of tenderness that made her forget completely where she was, why she was doing this, and even her own name. He tasted like whiskey and unspoken promises. When she found herself kissing him back with a passion she didn't know she possessed, she knew she was in trouble. When they broke apart, both were breathless. The world had disappeared for a few seconds, and Isabella had to grip his arm to keep from losing her balance. "Did it work?" he asked, his voice rougher than before. Isabella glanced quickly toward where Jake had been standing and almost laughed. Her ex was staring at them with his mouth hanging open, clearly shocked. "Mission accomplished," she breathed, still trying to regain her composure. "Perfectly. Good." He smiled, but there was something different in his eyes now, an intensity that made her blush. "You know, I usually ask for a name before I kiss someone. Isabella." She replied automatically. "Isabella Torres." "Ethan." He extended his hand formally, as if they hadn't just shared the most intense kiss of her life. "Ethan Carter." They stared at each other for a moment that stretched beyond comfortable, charged with tension. Isabella didn't know how to interpret. There was something there, a connection that went beyond the convenience of the moment. "I should go," Isabella said finally, though every fiber of her being was screaming at her to stay. "You should," Ethan agreed, but he didn't move. "It's just," she hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Tomorrow is my first day at a new job, and I need to be responsible." He finished with an understanding smile. "Exactly. Then go," he said softly. "And good luck with the new job." Isabella nodded, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the exit on still shaky legs. It wasn't until she was in the elevator that she realized she hadn't asked for his number, nor had he asked for hers. A perfect kiss with a perfect stranger, and she'd probably never see him again. The next morning, Isabella woke up with her stomach twisted in knots. First day at Sterling Creative, the chance of her career. She dressed carefully, navy blazer, white blouse, black pencil skirt, the perfect image of a competent, professional advertising executive. Nothing that would remind anyone of the woman who had kissed a stranger the night before. The agency's building was imposing, all glass and steel in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Isabella took a deep breath as she entered the elevator that would take her to the 18th floor. She had worked years to get here. Columbia graduate, internships at smaller agencies, building her portfolio one campaign at a time. This was her moment. The reception area was exactly what she'd imagined. Sleek, modern, with advertising awards proudly displayed on the walls. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled auburn hair, looked up with a bright smile. "You must be Isabella Torres. Welcome to Sterling Creative. I'm Lily. Mr. Carter is waiting for you in conference room B." Isabella's blood turned to ice. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, Ethan Carter, our creative director. He'll be conducting your orientation." Lily's smile never wavered. "He's really amazing to work with. You're so lucky to be on his team." The world tilted slightly. Isabella managed a weak smile and followed Lily's directions down a hallway lined with campaign posters, her heart hammering against her ribs. This couldn't be happening. The universe wasn't this cruel. She stopped outside conference room B, took a steadying breath, and knocked. "Come in." Isabella pushed open the door and stepped into her worst nightmare. Ethan Carter sat at the head of a long glass table, looking devastatingly professional in a charcoal gray suit, his hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. When he looked up and saw her, his coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. For a moment that felt like an eternity, they just stared at each other. Isabella watched as recognition, surprise, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. "Well," Ethan said finally, setting down his coffee cup with deliberate care, that familiar crooked smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "This is going to be interesting." Isabella's mouth went dry. Her new boss, the man she'd have to work with every single day, was the stranger she'd kissed last night with more passion than she'd ever kissed anyone in her life. She was in serious trouble. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire, both of them seemingly frozen in this impossible moment. Isabella's mind raced through a dozen different escape scenarios, but unfortunately, conference room B had only one door, and Ethan was sitting directly in its line of sight. "So," Ethan said, leaning back in his chair with an expression that was part amusement, part curiosity. "This is awkward." Isabella forced herself to move forward, setting her portfolio on the table with hands that trembled only slightly. "Mr. Carter, I can explain. Can you?" He raised an eyebrow, and she caught a glimpse of that same playful confidence from the night before. "Because I'm genuinely curious about what explanation covers kissing your future boss at a party." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I didn't know you were. I mean, obviously, I had no idea." "Relax, Torres." The way he said her last name, all professional and proper, made her stomach do another one of those traitorous flips. "Take a seat. Let's pretend we're meeting for the first time." Isabella slid into the chair across from him, trying to ignore how his eyes seemed to track her every movement. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the conference room, she could see details she'd missed in the dim bar. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his tie was just slightly loosened, the fact that his blue-green eyes were definitely more blue in the daylight. "Welcome to Sterling Creative, Miss Torres," Ethan said formally, but there was definitely mischief lurking in his voice. "I'm Ethan Carter, Creative Director. I'll be your direct supervisor." "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she managed, trying to match his professional tone. "I'm very excited to be here." "I'm sure you are." He opened a folder in front of him, presumably her file. "Columbia graduate, summa cum laude. Impressive portfolio. 3 years at Baxter & Associates, where you worked on the Harper department store campaign that won a Bronze Lion at Cannes." Isabella blinked. She hadn't expected him to be so thoroughly prepared or to sound genuinely impressed by her credentials. "You know my work. I know everyone's work who comes through this door. It's my job." His expression softened slightly. "You're talented, Torres. That's why you're here." Something warm unfurled in her chest at the praise, quickly followed by panic. This was exactly the problem. She was attracted to her boss, and apparently he knew her professional history as well as he knew how to kiss. "About last night," she began, But Ethan held up a hand. What about it? We should probably address it. There's nothing to address. Ethan's voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp. Two adults at a party helping each other out with an ex problem. Happens all the time. Isabella stared at him. It does? Sure. Classic fake relationship scenario. Very rom-com. The corner of his mouth twitched. Though I have to say, your ex looked like he'd swallowed his tongue. Well played. Despite herself, Isabella felt a smile tug at her lips. He did look pretty shocked. Mission accomplished. Ethan closed her file and stood up, ready for the grand tour. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of introductions, office layouts, and company policies. Ethan was the perfect professional guide, knowledgeable, funny, and completely appropriate. If Isabella hadn't known better, she might have thought she'd imagined the whole kissing incident, except for the way her skin seemed to buzz every time he accidentally brushed against her, or how her breath caught when he leaned over her shoulder to show her something on her computer, or the fact that she kept stealing glances at his mouth when he was talking. This is a disaster. And this is your office, Ethan said, opening the door to a small but bright corner space, with windows overlooking the street. Your first assignment is on your desk, the Dawn Cafe campaign. They want something fresh for their fall launch. Isabella stepped into the space, genuinely impressed. It wasn't huge, but it had natural light and enough room for her to make it her own. This is perfect. Good. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, and Isabella tried not to notice how the pose emphasized his broad shoulders. Staff meeting at 3 to go over current projects. Think you can handle jumping right in? Absolutely. She turned to face him, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. Mr. Carter, I want you to know that what happened last night won't interfere with my work here. I'm a professional. Ethan studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I never doubted that, Torres. But I have to ask, are you going to be able to work with me? Because if this situation is going to make you uncomfortable, we should address it now. The question caught her off guard with its directness. Are you going to be able to work with me? I asked first. Isabella met his gaze steadily. I can handle it if you can. Good. He straightened up. All business again. One more thing. About 50% of advertising is about chemistry, the spark between ideas, between team members, between the brand and the consumer. Chemistry can't be faked, and it can't be forced. Isabella's heart began to race. What are you saying? I'm saying that whatever happened last night, whatever that was, it's not necessarily a bad thing for our working relationship. Ethan's smile was enigmatic. As long as we keep it professional. Before Isabella could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone in her new office with her thoughts spinning like a tornado. Keep it professional, right? Easy enough, except for the fact that every cell in her body seemed to light up when he was around. She spent the rest of the morning diving into the Dawn Cafe materials, grateful to have something concrete to focus on. The coffee chain wanted to rebrand for the fall season, targeting young professionals who were looking for more than just caffeine. They wanted community, warmth, and a sense of belonging. Isabella was sketching out preliminary concepts when a knock on her door interrupted her concentration. Come in, she called, expecting to see Ethan. Instead, a petite woman with short blonde hair and designer glasses poked her head in. Isabella Torres, I'm Emma Larson, account manager. Do you have a minute? Of course. Isabella gestured to the chair across from her desk. Nice to meet you. Emma settled into the chair with the fluid grace of someone comfortable in her own skin. She was probably in her early 32nd, impeccably dressed in a way that suggested both competence and style. So, Emma said without preamble, you're the one who's got Ethan all distracted. Isabella nearly choked on her coffee. Excuse me? Don't worry. It's not obvious to most people, but I've worked with Ethan for 4 years, and I've never seen him check his phone as much as he did this morning. Plus, he was humming. Emma's grin was wicked. Ethan Carter does not hum. I have no idea what you're talking about, Isabella said weakly. Uh-huh. Emma looked entirely unconvinced. Look, I'm not here to gossip. Well, okay, I'm a little here to gossip, but mostly I wanted to give you a heads up about the office dynamics. What kind of heads up? Emma leaned forward conspiratorially. Ethan is complicated, brilliant at what he does, but he's got this whole emotionally unavailable workaholic thing going on. His last girlfriend, Nicole, total ice queen, dumped him about 6 months ago because, and I quote, he cared more about campaigns than commitment. Isabella's stomach twisted. Why are you telling me this? Because, Emma said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he was looking at you during the staff introductions this morning. And honey, that look was definitely not professional. After Emma left, Isabella tried to concentrate on her work, but her mind kept wandering. Ethan was emotionally unavailable. His ex had dumped him for being too focused on work, and apparently he'd been looking at Isabella in a decidedly unprofessional way during the morning introductions. This job was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to prove herself at a top-tier agency. Getting involved with her boss, especially one with commitment issues, was exactly the kind of complication she couldn't afford. At 3 o'clock sharp, Isabella made her way to the main conference room for the staff meeting. Ethan was already there, looking completely composed as he reviewed notes. When she entered, his eyes met hers briefly, and she caught something that might have been heat before he looked away. Professional, she reminded herself. Keep it professional. All right, everyone, Ethan said as the room filled with account managers, copywriters, and designers. Let's talk about what we're working with this week. The meeting proceeded smoothly, with Ethan demonstrating exactly why he was the creative director. He was sharp, insightful, and had a knack for asking the right questions to push ideas forward. Isabella found herself genuinely impressed by his leadership style. Torres, Ethan said about halfway through the meeting, what's your initial take on the Dawn Cafe brief? All eyes turned to her, and Isabella felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with being put on the spot. They say they want to target young professionals, but I think they're missing a bigger opportunity. The real market is people who are craving authentic connection in an increasingly digital world. Coffee shops aren't just about caffeine. They're about creating a space where people can unplug and reconnect. What if, instead of focusing on the professional angle, we positioned Dawn Cafe as the antidote to digital overload? Dawn Cafe, where conversations happen. Make it about the human element. The room was quiet for a moment, and Isabella wondered if she'd overstepped. Then Ethan smiled, not the polite, professional smile he'd been wearing all day, but something real and appreciative. That's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to make this campaign stand out, he said. Good instincts, Torres. The warmth in his voice made her cheeks flush, and she looked down at her notes to avoid the knowing look she could see Emma shooting her way. After the meeting, people began filing out, but Ethan caught her eye. Torres, can you stay for a minute? Isabella's heart hammered as the room emptied, leaving them alone. Ethan gathered his papers slowly, seemingly in no hurry to speak. That was good work in there, he said finally. Thank you. You're not what I expected. The comment surprised her. What did you expect? Ethan looked at her thoughtfully. Someone more cautious. Most people spend their first day trying to blend in, not challenging the brief. Is that a problem? On the contrary. He moved closer, and Isabella caught that familiar scent of his cologne. I value people who aren't afraid to take risks. The air between them seemed to thicken, and Isabella was suddenly very aware that they were alone in the conference room, that Ethan was standing just close enough for her to see the gold flecks in his eyes, and that her heart was beating way too fast for a professional conversation. Mr. Carter, she began, but he interrupted her. Ethan. When it's just us, you can call me Ethan. Ethan, she repeated, and the name felt dangerous on her tongue. We should probably maintain professional boundaries, he finished. Absolutely, but neither of them moved. The tension stretched between them, electric and undeniable, until Isabella felt like she might spontaneously combust. I should get back to work, she managed. You should. The Dawn Cafe campaign won't develop itself. It won't. Still, neither of them moved. Ethan's eyes dropped to her mouth for just a second, so briefly, she might have imagined it before meeting her gaze again. Isabella, he said, and her name in his voice made her knees weak. Yes, this is going to be interesting. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone in the conference room with her racing heart and the distinct feeling that her carefully planned professional life was about to get very, very complicated. 3 weeks into her tenure at Sterling Creative, Isabella had established a few key facts about her new life. First, she was really good at her job. The Dawn Cafe campaign was coming together beautifully, and she'd already been pulled into 2 other projects that had the senior partners taking notice. Second, Emma Larson had become both her closest work friend and her unofficial Ethan Carter intelligence source, providing daily updates on everything from his coffee preferences, black, no sugar, like his soul, according to Emma, to his dating history, sporadic and largely unsuccessful since Nicole. Third, and most problematically, working with Ethan was like being slowly electrocuted. Every meeting, every casual hallway encounter, every accidentally brushed hand when reaching for the same document sent sparks through her system that she was getting increasingly bad at hiding. The man was professional torture. It didn't help that he seemed to be going out of his way to be the perfect boss, supportive of her ideas, generous with praise, and completely appropriate at all times, which somehow made her attraction to him worse, because now she was falling for his mind and his character, in addition to his ridiculously attractive face. "You're staring again," Emma said, sliding into the chair across from Isabella's desk with her usual afternoon coffee. "I'm not staring," Isabella protested, quickly looking away from the glass wall of Ethan's office, where he was gesticulating animatedly during what appeared to be a tense phone call. "I'm observing workplace dynamics." "Uh-huh. And what workplace dynamic involves watching your boss's mouth move for 15 minutes straight?" Isabella felt her cheeks burn. "It was not 15 minutes. Honey, I timed it." Emma grinned wickedly. "You've got it bad. I have nothing. I'm a professional woman with a professional job and professional boundaries. Professional boundaries that apparently don't include mentally undressing your supervisor." "Emma," Isabella hissed, glancing around to make sure no one had overheard. "Relax. Everyone's gone home except for us overachievers and Ethan, who I'm pretty sure lives here." Emma leaned back in her chair. "Speaking of which, why are you still here? It's almost 8. Isabella gestured to the spread of campaign materials across her desk. "The Carlton Hotel's presentation is tomorrow morning, and I want to make sure everything's perfect. The presentation that Ethan's been working on for weeks and specifically told you was optional for you to attend. I want to contribute. This is my chance to show what I can bring to a major client pitch." Emma studied her with knowing eyes. "This wouldn't have anything to do with impressing a certain creative director, would it?" "It has to do with my career," Isabella said firmly, though they both knew it was at least partially a lie. "Right. Well, I'm heading out before my brain turns to mush. Try not to work yourself to death, and try not to do anything I wouldn't do if you end up alone with Mr. Tall, dark, and emotionally complicated." After Emma left, the office fell into the kind of quiet that only came after hours. Most of the lights were dimmed, and Isabella could hear the distant hum of the city below. She actually did need to finish her prep work for tomorrow's presentation, but she'd be lying if she said the possibility of running into Ethan wasn't part of her motivation for staying late. She was deep in reviewing market research when a shadow fell across her desk. "Torres." Isabella looked up to find Ethan standing in her doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking like he'd had a long day. His hair was rumpled, probably from running his hands through it, and there was a tiredness around his eyes that made her want to do something completely inappropriate, like offer to massage his shoulders. "Ethan," she said, proud of how normal her voice sounded. "I thought you'd left. I thought the same about you." He gestured to her desk, which looked like a paper explosion had occurred. "Carlton Hotels? I wanted to be prepared for tomorrow. You know you don't have to come to the presentation, right? It's mostly going to be me talking and schmoozing." "I know, but I have ideas, and I think they could help." Isabella stood up, gathering some of the mock-ups she'd been working on. "What if we repositioned their boutique properties, not as luxury accommodations, but as immersive local experiences? Carlton Hotels. Live like a local. Dream like a traveler." Ethan's eyebrows rose, and he stepped into her office to get a better look at her materials. "Show me." For the next 20 minutes, Isabella walked him through her concepts, explaining how they could tie into local culture, highlight unique neighborhood experiences, and create social media campaigns that would appeal to younger demographics looking for authentic travel experiences rather than generic luxury. Ethan listened intently, asking smart questions and building on her ideas in ways that made her excitement grow. This was what she loved about advertising. The collaborative creative process, the way two minds could spark off each other to create something bigger than either could achieve alone. "This is brilliant," Ethan said finally, studying the last of her mock-ups. "Why didn't you bring this up in the planning meetings?" Isabella hesitated. "I wasn't sure if it was my place." "This is your client. Your presentation." Isabella, the way he said her name made her look up at him. "You're part of this team. Your ideas are always welcome." They were standing close together, leaning over her desk to review the materials. Isabella was suddenly very aware of the intimacy of the moment. The empty office, the soft lighting, the way Ethan was looking at her with something that went beyond professional appreciation. "We should probably incorporate this into tomorrow's pitch," Ethan said, but his voice was rougher than usual. "We should," Isabella agreed, though she made no move to step away from him. "It'll mean staying late to revise the presentation." "I don't mind, Isabella." Ethan's hand came up to touch her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek in a gesture that was definitely not professional. "We shouldn't." "I know," she whispered. But she didn't pull away. "You work for me. I know this could complicate everything. I know." Ethan's eyes searched her face. "Then why aren't you running?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger. Isabella thought about all the reasons she should step back. Her career, office politics, the fact that Emma had warned her about Ethan's commitment issues. But standing there in the dim light of her office, with Ethan looking at her like she was something precious and dangerous, she couldn't bring herself to care about any of it. "Because," she said softly, "sometimes the best creative work comes from taking risks." Ethan's smile was slow and devastating. "Is that what this is? Creative work? I don't know what this is. Neither do I." His thumb traced along her jawline. "But I know I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that night at the bar. Ethan, I know I shouldn't want to kiss you again, but I do every day, every meeting, every time you argue with me about campaign strategies or get that little line between your eyebrows when you're concentrating." Isabella's breath caught. "You notice when I get a line between my eyebrows? I notice everything about you." His admission was quiet, almost reluctant. "It's becoming a problem." "Why is it a problem?" "Because I'm your boss. Because workplace relationships are complicated. Because I'm apparently terrible at keeping my personal life from destroying my professional life." Ethan's hand dropped away from her face, and she immediately missed the contact. "Ask Nicole. She'll give you a detailed list of my relationship failures." "I don't care about Nicole." "You should. She was right about me. I'm a workaholic with intimacy issues who puts campaigns before people." Isabella studied his face, seeing the genuine concern there. "Did it ever occur to you that maybe Nicole was just the wrong person?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe the problem wasn't that you cared too much about work. Maybe the problem was that you were with someone who didn't understand that work can be passion, not just obligation." Isabella stepped closer to him. "Maybe you just needed someone who gets excited about campaign strategies and doesn't mind late nights at the office." Ethan stared at her. "Someone like you, someone like me." The tension between them was so thick Isabella could practically see it shimmering in the air. Ethan's eyes dropped to her mouth, and she held her breath, waiting to see what he would do. "This is crazy," he murmured. "Completely crazy. We are going to regret this, probably." But instead of kissing her, Ethan stepped back, running his hands through his hair. "We should work on the presentation." Isabella blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. "Right, the presentation. Professional boundaries," Ethan said, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. "Professional boundaries." She echoed weakly. They spent the next 2 hours revising the Carlton Hotel's presentation, incorporating Isabella's concepts and refining the pitch. It should have been awkward after their moment, but instead, it felt natural, like they'd been creative partners for years. They fell into an easy rhythm, building on each other's ideas, challenging assumptions, and creating something that was definitely better than either could have produced alone. By the time they finished, it was past 10 o'clock, and Isabella's eyes were burning from staring at her computer screen. "I think that's good," Ethan said, saving the final version of the presentation. "Really good. The client is going to love the local experience angle." "It was a team effort," Isabella said, stretching her arms above her head. "It was your idea. I'm putting your name on the presentation." Isabella's head snapped up. "You don't have to do that. I'm not doing it to be nice. I'm doing it because you earned it." Ethan closed his laptop and looked at her seriously. "Isabella, you're talented. Really talented. Don't let anyone, including me, make you doubt that." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. "Thank you. Come on, I'll walk you to your car." They gathered their things and made their way to the elevator in comfortable silence. It wasn't until they were standing in the empty parking garage that Ethan spoke again. "About what happened upstairs. We don't have to talk about it," Isabella said quickly. "Yes, we do." Ethan turned to face her. "I want you to know that your job here isn't dependent on whatever this is between us. You're here because you're good at what you do, not because I'm attracted to you. I know that, Do you? Because I need you to know that if you ever feel like I'm crossing a line, or if this situation becomes uncomfortable, you can tell me. Your career is important, and I won't let my personal feelings jeopardize that." Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the parking garage, she could see the exhaustion on his face. The way he carried the weight of responsibility, not just for the agency, but for everyone who worked there, including her. "Ethan," she said softly, "what if I don't want professional boundaries?" He went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe some risks are worth taking. Maybe some complications are worth having." She stepped closer to him. "Maybe some people are worth breaking the rules for." For a moment, Ethan just stared at her. Then, slowly, he reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "You're going to be trouble, aren't you?" he murmured. "The very best kind," she whispered back. This time, when he kissed her, it wasn't for show or convenience or any reason other than that they both wanted it desperately. It was soft and intense and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Isabella felt like her entire world had shifted. "What happens now?" she asked. Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "Now we figure it out as we go." "That's not very professional of you, Mr. Carter." "No," he agreed, smiling that crooked smile she was definitely falling for. "It's not." As Isabella drove home that night, she couldn't stop smiling. She was probably making the biggest mistake of her career, getting involved with her boss. But for the first time since moving to New York, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, even if it was going to be complicated. The Carlton Hotel's presentation was a complete triumph. Isabella stood at the back of the conference room, trying to maintain her composure as the client, Diane Carlton herself, a sharp-eyed woman in her 52nd, who'd built a hotel empire from scratch, nodded approvingly at their final slides. "The local experience angle is exactly what we've been missing," Diane said, leaning forward in her chair. "Our properties have always had character, but we've been marketing them like generic luxury hotels. This campaign captures what makes us different." Ethan, who had been presenting with his usual confident charm, glanced back at Isabella with a look that made her heart skip. The concept was actually developed by our newest team member, Isabella Torres. "Isabella, would you like to walk through the implementation strategy?" For a split second, panic flared in Isabella's chest. This wasn't planned. Ethan was putting her on the spot in front of one of the agency's biggest clients. But then she saw the encouraging nod he gave her, the complete confidence in his expression, and her nerves settled into excitement. "Mrs. Carlton," Isabella said, moving to the front of the room, "what we're proposing isn't just a marketing campaign. It's a complete brand transformation that honors what your hotels already do well while positioning you for the next generation of travelers." For the next 15 minutes, Isabella found herself in the zone every creative professional dreams of, that perfect flow state where ideas come easily and everything you say lands exactly right. She walked Diane through the social media strategy, the partnership opportunities with local businesses, the way they could turn hotel guests into brand ambassadors by giving them authentic experiences they'd want to share. Diane asked smart, challenging questions, and Isabella answered each one with growing confidence. She was dimly aware of Ethan watching her with something that looked like pride, of the other sterling creative team members exchanging impressed glances, but mostly she was focused on the thrill of pitching a great idea to someone who truly understood its value. "Outstanding," Diane said when Isabella finished. "Ethan, you've got a keeper here. When can we start implementation?" After the client left, the conference room erupted in congratulations. Emma grabbed Isabella in a hug that nearly knocked her over. The senior partners shook her hand with genuine warmth, and everyone seemed to be talking at once about how brilliant the presentation had been. But Isabella only had eyes for Ethan, who was hanging back with that crooked smile she was becoming dangerously fond of. "Not bad for your first major client presentation," he said when they finally had a moment alone. "Not bad? I was amazing, and you know it," Isabella replied, feeling giddy with success and adrenaline. Ethan's smile widened. "You were amazing. Completely amazing. I've never seen Diane Carlton look that enthusiastic about anything. I couldn't have done it without you putting my name on the presentation, or without you throwing me into the deep end just now. You were ready for the deep end. I just made sure you knew it." They stood there looking at each other, and Isabella was suddenly very aware that they were alone in the conference room. That Ethan was looking at her like she'd just conquered the world, and that she wanted nothing more than to kiss him senseless. "We should probably," she began. "Get back to work," Ethan finished. but neither of them moved. People might notice if we're gone. They might. Emma's already suspicious. Emma's suspicious about everything. Isabella laughed. That's true. Yesterday, she accused me of having a secret coffee addiction because I was too alert during the morning meeting. Were you having a secret coffee addiction? I was having a secret stayed up until 2:00 a.m. thinking about my boss's problem, but I didn't think that was appropriate office conversation. The words slipped out before Isabella could stop them, and she immediately felt her cheeks burn. Ethan's expression shifted, heat flickering in his eyes. Isabella, sorry, don't apologize. Ethan moved closer, his voice dropping to that rough tone that made her knees weak. Do you know what I was doing at 2 a.m.? Working on client reports? Thinking about you. The admission hung between them, charged with possibility and danger. Isabella felt her breath catch as Ethan reached out to touch her arm, his thumb tracing a small circle that sent sparks through her entire nervous system. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know. Anyone could. I know. We agreed to keep things professional. We agreed to figure it out as we go. Ethan's hand moved up to cup her face. How's that working out for you? Terribly. I can barely concentrate in meetings. Yesterday, I spent 20 minutes staring at your hands during the campaign review. Ethan's smile was wicked. My hands? You have very distracting hands. Do I? Before Isabella could respond, the conference room door opened, and Emma walked in, took one look at them standing close together with Ethan's hand on Isabella's face, and immediately spun around. Nothing to see here, Emma announced loudly to the hallway behind her. Just two colleagues having a perfectly professional discussion about quarterly reports. Very boring quarterly reports. Ethan dropped his hand and stepped back, but he was grinning. Isabella covered her face with her hands, mortified. Coast is clear, Emma said, turning back around. But you two might want to work on your subtlety, or invest in an office with better locks. Emma, Isabella began. Relax, honey. Your secret is safe with me. But maybe next time, have your professional discussion somewhere that doesn't have glass walls. After Emma left, shaking her head and muttering something about workplace romance, Isabella and Ethan looked at each other and burst into laughter. So much for being discreet, Isabella said. Emma was going to figure it out eventually anyway. She has supernatural powers of observation. What are we going to do? Ethan considered this. We're going to be more careful, and we're going to take this slowly, very slowly, because as much as I want to take you to dinner tonight and tomorrow night and every night for the foreseeable future, we both know this situation is complicated. Isabella felt a flutter of disappointment mixed with relief. He was right, of course. Getting involved with her boss was risky enough without rushing into it. So, what does slowly look like? She asked. It looks like us getting to know each other outside of work. Coffee, maybe, or lunch conversations that don't involve client campaigns or office politics. That sounds... Isabella paused, trying to find the right word. Nice. Really nice. Good, because I want to know everything about you, Isabella Torres. What you were like in college, what made you want to go into advertising, what you do when you're not crafting brilliant campaign strategies. The way he said it, with genuine curiosity and something that might have been tenderness, made Isabella's chest tight. I want to know those things about you too, she admitted. Then we'll figure it out slowly. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of congratulations from colleagues and follow-up work for the Carlton account. Isabella tried to focus on her tasks, but kept catching herself stealing glances at Ethan's office, where he was visible through the glass walls, looking disgustingly attractive while reviewing contracts. Around 5 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Coffee tomorrow morning before work? There's a place called Blue Brew, 2 blocks from the office. 7 a.m. Ethan. Isabella stared at the message, her heart doing a little dance. He'd gotten her number from her employee file, which should probably have been concerning from a professional standpoint, but instead just felt exciting. Perfect. See you there, she replied. His response came almost immediately. Looking forward to it, Isabella was still smiling at her phone when Emma appeared at her desk. Good news or devastating news? Emma asked, noting Isabella's expression. What? You've got that look. Either you just got asked out by Mr. Tall, dark, and complicated, or you found out your student loans were forgiven. Since the second one is statistically impossible, I'm going with the first. Coffee, Isabella said, unable to keep the smile off her face. We're having coffee. Coffee is good. Coffee is safe. Coffee is the kind of thing that definitely won't end up with you two making out in supply closets. Emma, what? I'm just saying, Coffee leads to lunch. Lunch leads to dinner. Dinner leads to... I get the progression. Thank you, Emma grinned. I'm happy for you, you know. Ethan's a good guy, despite his commitment issues and workaholic tendencies. And you're good for him. How could you possibly know that? Because I've worked with him for 4 years, and I've never seen him smile as much as he has in the past 3 weeks. Also, he's been humming. Ethan Carter does not hum unless something major has shifted in his universe. That evening, Isabella went home to her small but charming apartment in Brooklyn Heights and immediately called her best friend from college, Mia, who was now a lawyer in San Francisco. Let me get this straight, Mia said after Isabella had explained the entire situation. You kissed your future boss at a party to make your ex jealous, then found out he was your actual boss, and now you're dating him. We're not dating, we're having coffee. Honey, when a man looks at you the way you've described Ethan looking at you, coffee is just the appetizer. This is insane, isn't it? Isabella collapsed onto her couch, suddenly exhausted. I'm jeopardizing my career for a guy I barely know. Are you kindizing your career? Mia asked. I mean, Isabella considered this. I don't think so. He's been nothing but supportive of my work. If anything, being around him makes me more creative, more confident. Then maybe the question isn't whether this is a risk to your career. Maybe the question is whether it's worth the risk to your heart. What do you mean? I mean, from what you've told me, this Ethan guy sounds pretty amazing. But you also said his ex dumped him for being emotionally unavailable. Are you prepared for the possibility that he might not be ready for something serious? The question hit Isabella like a splash of cold water. She'd been so caught up in the excitement of their mutual attraction that she hadn't really considered what Ethan might be looking for from this, whatever this was. I don't know, she admitted. Well, that's what coffee is for, to figure things out. After hanging up with Mia, Isabella spent the evening trying to read a book, but her mind kept wandering to tomorrow morning's coffee date. What would they talk about? What did she want from this situation? What did he want? By the time she went to bed, she was no closer to answers, but she was definitely more nervous. She arrived at Blue Brew Coffee the next morning 5 minutes early, wearing dark jeans, a soft gray sweater, and boots casual but put together. The cafe was busy with the morning rush, filled with professionals grabbing coffee before work, but she spotted Ethan immediately at a corner table. He'd clearly had the same casual but put-together idea, wearing dark jeans and a blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up. When he saw her, his face lit up with a smile that made her stomach flutter. You made it, he said, standing to give her a brief hug that smelled like coffee and that cologne she was becoming addicted to. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought there was a 50-50th chance you'd come to your senses and decide this was a terrible idea. Isabella settled into the chair across from him. The jury's still out on whether it's a terrible idea, but I figured I owed you coffee after you let me steal the spotlight during yesterday's presentation. You didn't steal anything. You earned it. Ethan's expression grew serious. I meant what I said yesterday, Isabella. You're incredibly talented. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve to be in that room. The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. Thank you. That means a lot. Good. Now tell me something that's not in your employee file. Like, what made you want to go into advertising? Like, what you do for fun? Like, why you moved to New York? Isabella wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, considering where to start. I moved to New York because I wanted to prove I could make it somewhere that didn't know my story. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where everyone knew everyone, and I felt like I was suffocating. New York felt like a place where I could be whoever I wanted to be. And who did you want to be? Someone who mattered, someone who could create things that moved people, that made them think or feel differently about the world. She paused, realizing how that sounded. That probably sounds incredibly naive. It sounds passionate. There's a difference. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes intent on her face. What about advertising specifically? Why not art or writing or any of the other creative fields? Because advertising is about understanding people what they want, what they need, what they're afraid of, what makes them happy. It's psychology and creativity and strategy all rolled together. And when you get it right, when you create something that really connects with people, it's like magic. Is that how you felt yesterday during the presentation? Isabella nodded. It was like everything clicked: the client, the creative, the strategy. It all came together perfectly. That's addiction, Ethan said with a knowing smile. That feeling. Once you've had it, you'll chase it for the rest of your career. Is that what you're doing? Chasing that feeling every day? Ethan's expression grew thoughtful. Though lately, I've been finding it in unexpected places. The way he looked at her when he said it made Isabella's cheeks warm. Like where? Like watching you present to Diane Carlton? Like seeing you get excited about campaign strategies? Like having conversations with someone who understands why I stay late at the office, not because I have to, but because I love what I do. Nicole didn't understand that. Ethan's smile turned rueful. Nicole thought my job was something I did to pay for the life we were supposed to have together. She never understood that a life wasn't separate from my life. It was part of it. What kind of life did she want? The kind where I left the office at 5:30 every day, where we had dinner parties with couples from her yoga class, where I cared more about thread count than campaign budgets. Ethan shook his head. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. It just wasn't me. What is you? Ethan was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider the question seriously. Someone who gets excited about great creative work. Someone who believes that what we do matters. That the right campaign can change how people see the world. Someone who doesn't mind working late if it means making something better. Someone who throws his new employee into a client presentation because he believes she can handle it. Someone who recognizes talent and isn't threatened by it. Ethan's smile was soft. Someone who's been wondering what it would be like to find a partner who gets excited about the same things I do. The word partner hung between them, loaded with possibility. Isabella felt her heart speed up. Is that what you're looking for? A partner? I'm looking for someone who makes me want to take risks, Ethan said quietly. Someone who challenges me to be better at what I do. Someone who doesn't see my passion for this work as a character flaw. Someone like you. Someone like me. Someone exactly like you. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of the admission settling between them. Isabella felt like they were standing at the edge of something significant, and she was both terrified and exhilarated by the prospect of jumping. Ethan, she said finally, what happens if this doesn't work out? What happens to my job, to the team dynamic? Honestly, I don't know. Ethan reached across the table to cover her hand with his. But I know that I'd rather take the risk of trying than spend the next year wondering what might have been, even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. The best creative work comes from embracing complexity, not avoiding it. Isabella looked down at their joined hands, his fingers warm and strong against hers. This is crazy, completely crazy. We could both end up getting hurt. We could. Or we could end up with something amazing. Ethan's smile was brilliant. Or we could end up with something amazing. Isabella took a deep breath, feeling like she was about to make one of the most important decisions of her life. Okay, let's be crazy. Let's take the risk. Let's see what happens when we stop fighting this and start exploring it. Ethan's hand tightened on hers. Are you sure? No, but I'm willing to find out. Good, Ethan said, bringing her hand to his lips and pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. Because I was hoping you'd say that. As they walked back to the office together, Isabella felt like the world had shifted on its axis. She was still nervous about the complications ahead, still worried about the professional implications. But underneath all of that was a sense of rightness that she couldn't ignore. For the first time in her life, she was choosing the risk over the safe option, and it felt absolutely terrifying and completely perfect all at once. One rule, Ethan said as they approached the Sterling Creative Building. What's that? At work, we're colleagues professional, appropriate colleagues, who happen to work very well together. And outside of work, Ethan's smile was devastating. Outside of work, we figure out what this is. I can live with that. Good, because I'm taking you to dinner tomorrow night, and I intend to find out everything else about Isabella Torres that's not in your employee file. As they entered the building together, Isabella caught Emma watching them through the glass doors with a knowing smirk. She was definitely going to have some explaining to do. But for now, she was content to ride the elevator up to the 18th floor with Ethan, stealing glances at him and feeling like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Complications and all. The dinner was supposed to be simple. A quiet restaurant in the village, good food, better conversation, and the chance for Isabella and Ethan to explore whatever was happening between them without the watchful eyes of their colleagues. What Isabella hadn't anticipated was how devastating Ethan would look in a dark gray sweater and jeans, or how the intimate lighting of the restaurant would make his eyes seem even more impossibly blue-green, or how the simple act of watching him read the menu would make her stomach flutter like she was 16 again. See anything you like? Ethan asked, glancing up from his menu with that crooked smile that was becoming dangerously familiar. A few things, Isabella replied. And from the way his eyes darkened slightly, She knew he'd caught the double meaning. They were seated at a corner table at a cozy Italian place called Bella's that Ethan had discovered during his first year in New York. The walls were brick, covered with black and white photos of what appeared to be someone's actual Italian grandmother. The whole place had the kind of authentic charm that couldn't be manufactured. "This place is perfect," Isabella said, looking around appreciatively. "How did you find it?" "Wandering around the city when I first moved here, feeling completely overwhelmed and desperately homesick. I was walking aimlessly after another 18-hour day at my first agency job, and I smelled garlic and rosemary and followed my nose like a cartoon character." Ethan's expression grew fond with the memory. The owner, Lucia, took one look at me, this exhausted, slightly desperate-looking guy in an ill-fitting suit, and basically adopted me. She's been feeding me ever since. "Where did you move from?" "Boston, born and raised. My whole family is still there. Parents, 2 sisters, about a dozen cousins, all wondering why I left New England for the chaos of New York." Isabella tried to picture Ethan with a big family, Sunday dinners, the kind of roots she'd never really had. "Do you miss it sometimes?" "I miss knowing where everything is. I miss being 5 minutes from my mom's cooking. I miss the way people in Boston aren't in such a hurry that they forget to be human." Ethan paused, considering. "But I don't miss feeling like I had to fit into a box that was predetermined for me. In Boston, I was Tom Carter's boy, the one who was good with numbers and would probably take over the family accounting firm. In New York, I get to be whoever I want to be." "Tom Carter?" "My dad. He's a CPA, been doing taxes for half the North End for 30 years. Good man, solid man, but he never understood why I wanted to go into advertising. He still introduces me as my son who works in marketing, like it's some kind of medical condition." Isabella laughed. "My parents are the same way. They tell people I work with computers because they can't quite grasp what digital advertising actually involves." "What do they do?" "My mom's a high school English teacher. My dad manages the local hardware store. They're good people, salt-of-the-earth types, but they think my job is some kind of elaborate scam where companies pay me to make pretty pictures." Isabella fiddled with her wine glass. "They wanted me to come back to Ohio after college, marry my high school boyfriend, Nate, and teach at the same school where my mom works." "Nate?" "Nate Wilson, football captain, valedictorian, currently sells insurance and coaches Little League. He's actually a really nice guy, but the idea of spending my life in a town where the biggest excitement is the annual corn festival made me want to climb the walls. I wanted something bigger, something that would challenge me, something that mattered." Ethan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "And you found it." "I'm starting to think I found more than I was looking for." The words slipped out before Isabella could stop them, more honest than she'd intended to be. Ethan's thumb traced across her knuckles, sparking up her arm. "Good," he said softly, "because I definitely found more than I was looking for." They ordered ossobuco for Ethan, lobster ravioli for Isabella, and fell into the kind of easy conversation that felt like they'd been having dinners together for years instead of hours. Ethan told her about his college years at Northeastern, his early disasters at his first agency job, the campaign that had finally established his reputation. Isabella shared stories about her internships, her first big campaign failure, the moment she'd realized that advertising wasn't just her job, but her calling. "What was the campaign failure?" Ethan asked, refilling their wine glasses. "Oh, it was spectacular. Second year at Baxter and Associates, they gave me a chance to lead the pitch for a local fitness chain. I was so nervous and so eager to impress that I completely overthought everything." Isabella cringed at the memory. "I created this elaborate campaign about finding your inner warrior that was supposed to be edgy and motivational. Instead, it came across as pretentious and completely disconnected from what their actual customers wanted, which was a clean, affordable place to work out without feeling judged. They didn't want to be warriors. They wanted to feel good about themselves." Isabella shook her head. "The client took one look at my presentation and said, 'Who are you trying to reach with this campaign? Because it's not our customers.' Ouch." The worst part was that my supervisor, Greg, had to step in and basically redo the entire pitch overnight. I was mortified. I thought I was going to get fired, but I didn't. Greg sat me down the next day and said, "The difference between a good creative and a great creative is that great creatives fail spectacularly and learn from it. You've had your spectacular failure. Now show me what you learned." Ethan smiled. "Smart boss, the best." He taught me that our job isn't to impress other advertising people, it's to connect with real humans. Every campaign I've worked on since then, I ask myself, would this speak to my mom? Would Nate Wilson understand what we're trying to say? Is that what you were thinking about with the Carlton Hotels campaign? Actually, I was thinking about my college roommate's mom, Mrs. Lynn. She traveled for work constantly, but always complained that business hotels made her feel like she was staying in a sterile box. She wanted to feel like she was experiencing the place she was visiting, not just sleeping there. Isabella paused. I know it sounds silly, but I try to create campaigns for specific people I know, even if they're not the target demographic. It keeps me grounded. That's not silly at all. That's brilliant. Ethan's expression was thoughtful. I do something similar, but I've never articulated it like that. I think about my sister Lauren. She's a nurse, very practical, very down to earth. If a campaign wouldn't make sense to Lauren, I know I'm overcomplicating it. What's Lauren like? Stubborn, hilarious, completely unimpressed by anything I do. She still calls me by my childhood nickname and sends me care packages filled with Boston-style clam chowder because she's convinced New York food is too fancy for normal humans. Ethan's voice was warm with affection. She's also one of the smartest people I know. She can diagnose a patient's problem in 5 minutes and explain complex medical procedures in terms anyone can understand. I've learned more about communication from watching her with patients than I did in 4 years of business school. She sounds amazing. She is. You'd like her. She'd probably interrogate you mercilessly about your intentions with her baby brother, but you'd like her. The casual reference to Isabella meeting his family made her heart skip a beat. It implied a future, a level of seriousness that both thrilled and terrified her. Baby brother? She asked, deflecting from the bigger implication. By 18 months, but she acts like it's 18 years. She still tries to give me dating advice and asks if I'm eating enough vegetables. What kind of dating advice? Ethan's smile turned sheepish. Usually variations on stop dating women who don't appreciate how wonderful you are. Smart sister, she thought Nicole was. Ethan paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Let's just say, Lauren never warmed up to her. What did Lauren think was wrong with Nicole? That she was trying to change me instead of accepting who I am. Lauren said Nicole treated my personality like a renovation project. She loved the potential but couldn't stand the reality. Isabella considered this. What was the reality that Nicole couldn't stand? That I get excited about work. That I stay late when I'm passionate about a project. Not because I have to, but because I want to. That I'd rather spend a Friday night brainstorming campaign ideas than at another dinner party where everyone complains about their jobs. Ethan met Isabella's eyes. That I'm looking for a partner who wants to build something together, not someone who wants me to build a life around them. What's the difference? Building something together means we're both passionate about what we do, and we support each other's ambitions. We celebrate each other's successes and collaborate on making our lives better. Building a life around someone means sacrificing what makes you who you are to fit their vision of what you should be. Isabella felt something click into place. Nicole wanted you to build a life around her. Nicole wanted me to be successful enough to provide the lifestyle she wanted, but not so passionate about my work that it interfered with her plans. Ethan's expression grew distant. She used to get upset when I worked late, but she also got upset if we couldn't afford the vacation she wanted or the apartment she thought we should have. She wanted the benefits of my career without accepting the commitment it required. That sounds exhausting. It was. I spent 3 years trying to be someone I wasn't, wondering why I felt so disconnected from my own life. Ethan's hand found hers again. The irony is that the harder I tried to be what she wanted, the worse I got at my job, which made me even more frustrated and distant. Is that why you broke up? She broke up with me, actually. Said I was emotionally unavailable, and that she couldn't compete with my job for my attention. Ethan's smile was rueful. She wasn't wrong about the emotionally unavailable part. I was so busy trying to be someone else that I'd lost track of who I actually was. Do you miss her? I miss the idea of her. I miss feeling like I was building towards something, like I had a plan for my life. But I don't miss the constant feeling that I was failing at being the person she needed me to be. And now, Ethan's voice was quiet, intense. Now I'm sitting across from someone who gets excited when I talk about campaign strategies, who stayed late to work on a presentation because she wanted to contribute, who makes me feel more like myself than I've felt in years. Now I'm wondering if I've been looking for the wrong things in the wrong places." Isabella felt her breath catch. The conversation had taken a turn toward territory that felt both thrilling and dangerous. They were moving beyond casual dating into something deeper, something that had the potential to change everything. "Ethan," she said carefully, "what are you looking for? Really?" He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb still tracing patterns on her hand. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful, deliberate. "I'm looking for someone who challenges me to be better at what I do. Someone who has their own dreams and ambitions, not just plans to be part of mine. Someone who understands that passion for work isn't the same as being a workaholic, that loving what you do is actually a gift, not a character flaw." He paused, his eyes meeting hers intently. "I'm looking for someone who makes me want to take risks, both personally and professionally. Someone who makes me laugh, who calls me on my nonsense, who gets excited about the same things I get excited about." His smile was soft, almost vulnerable. "Someone who makes me feel like myself, only better." That's a pretty specific list. It is. And for the first time in my life, I'm sitting across from someone who fits it perfectly. Isabella felt her heart racing. This was the moment where she could deflect, make a joke, keep things light, or she could be as honest as he'd been, take the same risk he was taking. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "When I moved to New York, I made myself a promise. I promised that I wouldn't settle for anything less than extraordinary, not in my career, not in my relationships, not in my life." She took a shaky breath. "I've had relationships before, but they've all felt like rough drafts. Like I was practicing for the real thing. And now I'm terrified. Because this doesn't feel like practice. This feels like the real thing, and it's happening at the worst possible time with the most complicated possible person." Ethan's smile was brilliant. "The most complicated possible person? You're my boss, Ethan. You're brilliant and ambitious, and you have commitment issues and a track record of relationships that don't work out. On paper, you're exactly the kind of risk I should avoid. But when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. When we're working together, I'm more creative, more confident, more willing to take chances. When you look at me like you're looking at me right now, I feel like I could conquer the world. How am I looking at you right now? Like I'm something precious and dangerous and worth fighting for." Ethan stood up abruptly, pulling his wallet from his pocket and throwing cash on the table. "Come on, where are we going? Somewhere we can continue this conversation without an audience." They left the restaurant and walked through the village, the October air crisp but not yet cold. Isabella wasn't sure where they were headed until Ethan stopped in front of a small park tucked between two buildings, with a few benches and a fountain that was lit up against the darkness. "This is better," Ethan said, settling onto a bench and pulling Isabella down beside him. "No waiters, no other diners, just us." "Just us," Isabella agreed, suddenly very aware of how close they were sitting, how his arm was draped along the back of the bench behind her. "I need to tell you something," Ethan said, his voice serious. "This thing between us, it's not casual for me. I know we said we'd take it slowly, figure it out as we go, but I need you to know that I'm not looking for something temporary." Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for someone to build something with. Someone who wants to create a life together, not just date until something better comes along." He turned to face her fully. "I know it's crazy because we've known each other for less than a month. But Isabella, I think you could be that person." The admission hung between them enormous, terrifying, and exhilarating. Isabella felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, and Ethan was asking her to jump with him. "That is crazy," she whispered. "Completely crazy. We could be making a huge mistake. We could be. Or we could be making the best decision of our lives." Ethan's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "What do you think? Are you willing to be crazy with me?" Isabella looked into his eyes, seeing the hope and vulnerability there, feeling the weight of the moment. This was her chance to play it safe, to keep things casual, to protect herself from the possibility of getting hurt. Instead, she leaned into his touch and said, "I'm willing to be crazy with you." Ethan's kiss was soft and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Isabella felt like the world had shifted permanently. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure out how to make this work. The job situation, the office politics, all of it." Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "Because I'm not giving this up, Isabella. Whatever complications come, whatever challenges we face, I'm not giving us up, even if it gets messy, especially if it gets messy. The best creative work comes from embracing the mess, remember? Isabella laughed, feeling giddy and terrified, and completely, utterly happy. This is definitely going to be messy. Good. I like messy. As they walked back through the village together, hand in hand for the first time, Isabella felt like she was stepping into a completely new version of her life. It was risky and complicated and potentially disastrous, but it was also the most exciting thing that had ever happened to her. And for the first time since moving to New York, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The next morning at work, Isabella tried to act normal, professional, appropriate. She said good morning to Ethan in the hallway with the same tone she used with everyone else, contributed to the morning meeting without staring at his mouth, and managed to review campaign materials without getting distracted by memories of his hands in her hair. She was doing pretty well until Emma appeared at her desk around 11 o'clock with 2 cups of coffee and a knowing expression. "Well, well, well," Emma said, settling into the chair across from Isabella's desk. "Look who's glowing again." "I'm not glowing, honey. You're practically luminescent. Whatever happened this weekend, it was good." Before Isabella could respond, Ethan appeared in her doorway, looking devastatingly professional in a navy suit and that blue tie that brought out his eyes. "Torres, do you have a minute? I want to go over the Dawn Cafe launch strategy." "Of course, Mr. Carter," Isabella replied, proud of how normal her voice sounded. But as she followed Ethan into his office, she heard Emma mutter behind them, "Worst actors ever." Ethan closed his office door and immediately turned to face Isabella, his professional mask slipping to reveal something much warmer. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning," she replied, trying to ignore how good he smelled, how much she wanted to straighten his tie, how the memory of last night's kiss was making it very difficult to concentrate on anything else. "How are you feeling about everything?" "About us? Good. Terrified, but good." Isabella moved closer to his desk, maintaining some professional distance but allowing herself to really look at him. "How are you feeling? Like Maka want to kiss you senseless, but that would probably violate several HR policies." Isabella's breath caught. "Probably. Definitely." Ethan's eyes dropped to her mouth. "This is going to be harder than I thought." "What?" "Keeping my hands to myself when you're looking at me like that." "How am I looking at you? Like you want me to kiss you senseless too?" They stared at each other across his office, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Isabella was very aware of the glass walls, of the fact that anyone could see them, of how unprofessional this was. She was also aware that she didn't care. "Ethan," she said softly, "yeah, tonight after work can we—" A knock on Ethan's door interrupted her, and they sprang apart guiltily as Liam Wong, one of the senior partners, poked his head in. "Ethan, sorry to interrupt. The Grayson Group just called. They want to move up their campaign presentation to Thursday. Do you think we can be ready?" "Absolutely," Ethan said, his professional mask sliding back into place seamlessly. "Isabella, can you coordinate with the design team to prioritize the Grayson materials?" "Already on it," Isabella said, making a note in her planner. "I'll have timeline revisions to you by noon." "Perfect. Thanks, both of you." After Liam left, Ethan and Isabella looked at each other and grinned. "Not bad," Ethan said. "We almost seemed professional. Almost. We'll get better at it." "We'd better, because I'm not giving you up. And I'm not giving up this career we're both building." "Good," Isabella said, moving toward the door. "Because I'm not giving up either." As she left Ethan's office, Isabella felt a surge of confidence that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. It would be complicated, navigating their relationship while building their careers, but they would figure it out together. After all, the best creative work came from embracing complexity, not avoiding it. Her phone buzzed with a text. "My place tonight. I'll cook dinner, and we can figure out how to make this work." "Ethan," Isabella smiled, her heart racing with anticipation and nerves. Tonight, they'd cross another line. Tonight, things would get even more complicated. She couldn't wait. Ethan's apartment was nothing like what Isabella had expected. She'd imagined something sleek and minimalist, all clean lines and expensive furniture, the kind of place that looked more like a magazine spread than an actual home. Instead, as she stepped through the door of his Upper West Side brownstone apartment, she found herself in a space that was warm, lived in, and unmistakably personal. The living room was anchored by a well-worn leather couch, that looked like it had been broken in by years of Sunday afternoon naps, surrounded by bookshelves crammed with everything from advertising industry publications to worn paperback novels. The walls were covered with framed campaign posters, some from Sterling Creative, others that looked like they dated back to his early career, but mixed in with the professional achievements were personal touches that made Isabella's chest tight. Family photos, what appeared to be a child's drawing labeled Uncle Ethan in crayon, a small watercolor painting that looked handmade. "This is beautiful," Isabella said, setting down her purse and turning to take in the full space. "It's so." You, Ethan, who had been watching her reaction with nervous anticipation, relaxed visibly. "You were expecting something different?" "I was expecting something that looked like a showroom." "This looks like a home." "My sister Lauren would be thrilled to hear you say that. She's the one who made me buy actual furniture instead of living with a card table and a futon." Ethan moved toward the kitchen, which was open to the living room and smelled incredible. She said, and I quote, "You're 32 years old, Ethan Michael Carter. You can afford a real couch and some plants that aren't plastic." "Ethan Michael Carter?" Isabella grinned, following him into the kitchen. "Very distinguished. Very Catholic mother who wanted to make sure I was properly named after my grandfather." Ethan opened the oven to check on whatever was making the amazing smell. "How hungry are you?" "Dinner should be ready in about 20 minutes. "Starving." "What are you making?" "It smells incredible. Nothing fancy. Chicken marsala, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, comfort food, basically." Ethan straightened up, suddenly looking uncertain. "I should probably warn you that I'm not much of a cook. Lauren tried to teach me some basics when I moved here, but most of what I know comes from watching cooking shows during insomnia bouts." Isabella moved closer to peer into the oven, where golden chicken and perfectly roasted vegetables were bubbling in what looked like a complex wine sauce. "This looks pretty fancy to me. My idea of cooking is opening a can of soup and adding crackers." "Really?" "Really. I can make coffee, scrambled eggs, and peanut butter sandwiches. Everything else comes from takeout menus." Isabella felt heat creep up her neck. "I know that's pathetic for a grown woman, but between college and work and moving to New York, I never really learned." "It's not pathetic. It's just different priorities." Ethan moved to the wine fridge and pulled out a bottle of white wine. "Besides, I like cooking. It's relaxing after a long day of thinking about campaigns and client strategies. And when you get it right, it's like magic." Isabella nodded, accepting the wine and taking a sip, considering the question. "Honestly, I don't think I've figured that out yet. Since moving to New York, my entire life has been focused on work, building my portfolio, networking, trying to prove myself in a new city. And before New York, I was in college, which was also entirely focused on preparing for work." She laughed, but it sounded a little hollow. "I'm starting to realize that I might not have any hobbies that aren't career-related." "What did you do for fun when you were a kid?" "I read constantly, fantasy novels, mysteries, anything I could get my hands on. I used to disappear into books for entire weekends." The memory made Isabella smile. "My mom used to have to physically drag me outside to get fresh air." "Do you still read?" "Not like I used to. Maybe a book or two a year, usually on vacation." Isabella felt a pang of loss she hadn't expected. "I miss it, actually. I miss having that escape, that ability to just disappear into another world for hours." "What else?" "I used to write. Nothing serious, just stories for myself. I had these elaborate fantasies about living in different cities, having adventures, meeting interesting people." Isabella took another sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. "I guess in a way advertising is similar. We're creating stories, just shorter ones designed to sell products." "Have you written anything lately?" "For yourself, I mean." I keep telling myself I'll start again when I have time. But there's always another campaign, another deadline, another networking event." Isabella looked around Ethan's apartment, taking in the personal touches, the evidence of a life lived outside of work. "You seem to have figured out the balance better than I have." "I'm not sure about that. Ask Nicole. She'd tell you I was completely obsessed with work." Ethan was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider this. "But with you, I don't feel like I have to choose. You understand that work can be passion, not just obligation. You get excited about the same things I get excited about." Ethan moved closer, setting down his wine glass. "Being with you makes me want to be better at everything. Work, life, relationships, All of it. The sincerity in his voice made Isabella's chest tight. Ethan, I know this is moving fast. I know we're taking risks, but Isabella, I haven't felt this hopeful about anything in years. Before Isabella could respond, the timer on the oven went off, breaking the moment. Ethan moved to check the food while Isabella tried to process what he'd just said. Hopeful. He felt hopeful because of her. Perfect timing, Ethan said, pulling the chicken from the oven. Hope you're hungry. Dinner was extraordinary, and not just because the food was delicious. They talked about everything. Books they'd loved, places they wanted to travel, embarrassing childhood stories, dreams they'd never shared with anyone. Ethan told her about the novel he'd been trying to write for 3 years, always abandoning it when work got busy. Isabella admitted that she'd always wanted to take a pottery class but had never made time for it. Why pottery? Ethan asked, refilling their wine glasses. I don't know. There's something appealing about creating something beautiful with your hands, something that's not digital or temporary, something real. Isabella traced the rim of her glass. Most of what we do in advertising exists in the virtual world. Campaigns come and go. Trends change. Everything is ephemeral. I think I'd like to make something that lasts. That's beautiful. That's silly. No, it's beautiful. And it's not silly to want to create something permanent. Ethan reached across the table to cover her hand with his. Why don't you sign up for a class? Between client meetings and campaign deadlines and office politics, what if you made time? What if having something that was just for you, not related to work at all, actually made you better at your job? Isabella looked at him skeptically. How could pottery possibly make me better at advertising? Because creativity feeds creativity. Because having experiences outside of work gives you more to draw from when you're trying to connect with people. Because sometimes the best ideas come when you're not actively trying to have them. Is that why you cook? Partly. But mostly because there's something satisfying about creating something from scratch, something that nourishes people you care about. Ethan's thumb traced across her knuckles. Tonight, I got to cook for someone I care about very much. It made the whole process feel different. Isabella felt her heart skip. Someone you care about very much? Someone I'm falling in love with, Ethan said quietly. The words hung between them enormous, terrifying, and wonderful. Isabella stared at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he was holding his breath, waiting for her response. Ethan, she whispered. Too much, too fast. No, not too fast. Isabella turned her hand under his, so they were palm to palm. Just scary. Good scary or bad scary? Good scary. Definitely good scary. Ethan's smile was brilliant. So you're not running away. Where would I run to? You know where I work. They laughed, the tension breaking into something warm and intimate. After dinner, they moved to the couch with the rest of the wine, and Isabella found herself curled against Ethan's side like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Can I ask you something? Isabella said, her head on Ethan's shoulder. What happens on Monday when we go back to work, and Emma is watching our every move, and we have to pretend this isn't happening? Ethan was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. What do you want to happen? I want to be able to work with you without everyone speculating about our personal lives. I want to be taken seriously for my ideas and my contributions, not dismissed as the boss's girlfriend. Isabella lifted her head to look at him. But I also don't want to hide this. I don't want to pretend I don't care about you. Neither do I. So, we find a middle ground. What does that look like? It looks like us being professional at work, but not pretending we don't know each other outside of it. It looks like being discreet, but not secretive. Ethan brushed a strand of hair away from her face. It looks like us being a team, both professionally and personally. You make it sound simple. The feelings are simple. It's the logistics that are complicated. Isabella considered this. What if people think I'm getting preferential treatment because we're involved? Then we make sure your work speaks for itself, which it already does, by the way. The Carlton account is proof of that. What if the other partners have a problem with it? Then we deal with that when and if it happens. Isabella, there's no company policy against relationships between colleagues. As long as we maintain professional boundaries at work and don't let our personal relationship interfere with business decisions, we're not breaking any rules. And if it doesn't work out between us? Ethan's hand stilled on her arm. Are you planning for it not to work out? No, but I'm scared, Ethan. This job is everything I've worked for. If this goes wrong, it won't affect your job. Ethan shifted so he could look directly at her. "You're right. I can't promise that this will be easy, or that there won't be challenges, or that people won't have opinions about our relationship. But I can promise that I will never let our personal relationship jeopardize your career. I can promise that I believe in your talent and your potential completely independent of how I feel about you. And I can promise that if the choice ever comes down to protecting you or protecting myself, I'll choose you every time." The fierce sincerity in his voice made Isabella's eyes water. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've spent the last month watching you work, watching you think, watching you grow more confident and creative with every project. You're extraordinary, Isabella. You were extraordinary before we got involved. And you'll be extraordinary regardless of what happens between us." Ethan cupped her face in his hands. "I'm falling in love with you because of who you are, not because I want to change you or control you or make you dependent on me. I'm falling in love with your ambition, your creativity, your refusal to settle for anything less than excellence. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. I want to support your dreams and celebrate your successes and help you become everything you're capable of becoming." Isabella felt tears spill over. "That's everything I've ever wanted. Then let me give it to you." When Ethan kissed her this time, it was different from their previous kisses. It was soft and deep and full of promise, a kiss that felt like a beginning rather than just passion. When they broke apart, Isabella felt like something fundamental had shifted between them. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered against his lips. Ethan's smile was radiant. "Yeah? Yeah. Completely, terrifyingly, head over heels falling in love with you. Good. Because I was starting to worry this was one-sided." They stayed on the couch for hours, talking and kissing and planning a future that felt both impossible and inevitable. Ethan told her about his dreams of starting his own agency someday, about the novel he wanted to finish, about his desire to travel more and experience the world outside of conference rooms and client meetings. Isabella shared her own dreams, the pottery classes she wanted to take, the short stories she wanted to write, the campaign ideas that kept her awake at night. "What would your ideal life look like?" Ethan asked as they lay together in the dim light of his living room. 5 years from now? 10 years from now? 20 years from now? If you could have anything? Isabella thought about it, tracing patterns on Ethan's chest. "I want to be known for my work. I want to create campaigns that people remember, that change how they think about things. I want to be the person that junior creatives look up to, the way I look up to the people who inspire me now. I want to travel. I want to see how advertising works in different cultures, how people connect with brands in different parts of the world. I want to take that pottery class and maybe learn to cook something more complicated than scrambled eggs." Isabella paused. "I want to have a home that feels like this, full of things that matter, memories that mean something. Evidence of a life well lived with someone who gets excited about the same things I get excited about, who challenges me and supports me and makes me want to be better at everything." Isabella lifted her head to look at him. "Someone like you, someone exactly like me, I hope. What about you? What's your ideal life?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, his fingers combing through her hair. "I want to finish my novel and publish it, even if only 3 people read it. I want to start my own agency and build something that matters, something that creates great work and treats people well. I want to travel with someone I love and see the world through their eyes as well as my own. I want to have Sunday dinners with my family, where I can introduce someone to my parents and my sisters and watch them fall in love with her the way I have. I want to have someone to come home to who's excited to hear about my day and wants to tell me about theirs." Ethan's voice grew soft. "I want to build something lasting with someone who understands that love isn't about sacrificing who you are. It's about becoming more yourself with the right person." "That sounds perfect." "It does, doesn't it?" Ethan tilted her chin up so he could see her face. "The question is, do you want to build that life with me?" Isabella felt her heart racing. This was at the moment where she could play it safe or take the biggest risk of her life. She thought about her carefully planned career trajectory, about the complications that would come with dating her boss, about all the practical reasons why this was a bad idea. Then she thought about how she felt when she was with Ethan. Confident, creative, completely herself. She thought about the way he looked at her when she presented ideas, like she was capable of anything. She thought about how right it felt to be here in his apartment, planning a future together like they'd been doing it for years. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and sure. "I want to build that life with you." Ethan's kiss was fierce and joyful and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, He rested his forehead against hers. So, what happens now? Now we go back to work on Monday and pretend we're not planning our entire future together. That's going to be harder than it sounds. Probably impossible. Definitely impossible. They laughed, and Isabella felt a bubble of pure happiness expand in her chest. This was crazy and risky and potentially disastrous. But it was also the most right thing she'd ever done. Ethan? Yeah? Can I stay tonight? His smile was slow and devastating. I was hoping you'd ask. Monday morning, Isabella arrived at work 15 minutes early, hoping to settle in before the office filled up, and she had to navigate the challenge of acting normal around Ethan. She'd spent Sunday morning at his apartment, drinking coffee and reading the Sunday Times together like they'd been doing it for years, and leaving had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done. Now, sitting at her desk and trying to focus on the Dawn Cafe implementation timeline, she felt like she was wearing a neon sign that announced, "I'm completely in love with my boss," to anyone who looked at her. Well, 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 Emma said, appearing at Isabella's desk with 2 cups of coffee and a knowing smirk. Look who's glowing again. I'm not glowing. Honey, you're practically luminescent. Whatever happened this weekend, it was good. Before Isabella could respond, Ethan appeared in her doorway, looking devastatingly professional in a charcoal gray suit and looking like he hadn't spent the weekend kissing her senseless. Torres, could I see you in my office? I want to go over the Dawn Cafe launch strategy. Of course, Mr. Carter, Isabella replied, proud of how normal her voice sounded. As she followed Ethan into his office, she heard Emma mutter behind them, "Worst actors ever." Ethan closed his office door and immediately turned to face Isabella, his professional mask slipping just enough to reveal the warmth underneath. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning," she replied, trying to ignore how much she wanted to straighten his tie. "How are you feeling about everything?" "About us? Good. Nervous about maintaining professional boundaries, but good." Ethan moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "I missed you yesterday. You saw me yesterday morning. I missed you yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening and this morning before you got here." Isabella felt her cheeks warm. "Ethan, we need to maintain professional boundaries." He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "This is going to be harder than I thought. The first day is probably the hardest. We'll figure it out, right? Professional colleagues who happen to be building a life together. Professional colleagues who happen to be madly in love with each other." Ethan's smile was brilliant. That too. A knock on the door interrupted them, and Liam Wong poked his head in. "Ethan, sorry to interrupt. The Grayson Group just called. They want to move up their campaign presentation to Thursday. Do you think we can be ready?" "Absolutely," Ethan said, his professional mask sliding back into place seamlessly. "Isabella, can you coordinate with the design team to prioritize the Grayson materials?" "Already on it," Isabella said, making a note in her planner. "I'll have timeline revisions to you by noon." "Perfect. Thanks, both of you." After Liam left, Ethan and Isabella looked at each other and grinned. "Not bad," Ethan said. "We almost seemed professional, almost. We'll get better at it. We'd better. Because I'm not giving you up. And I'm not giving up this career we're both building." "Good," Isabella said, moving toward the door. "Because I'm not giving up either." As she left Ethan's office, Isabella felt a surge of confidence that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. It would be complicated, navigating their relationship while building their careers. But they would figure it out together. After all, the best creative work came from embracing complexity, not avoiding it. 6 months later, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that the Carlton Hotel's Live Like a Local campaign has won the Gold Lion for Excellence in Travel and Tourism at this year's Cannes Lions Festival. The ballroom at the Advertising Awards Gala erupted in applause, but Isabella barely heard it over the sound of her own heartbeat. She stared at the stage where Diane Carlton was accepting the award on behalf of Sterling Creative, holding the Golden Lion statue that represented the highest honor in international advertising. This campaign, Diane continued into the microphone, was the brainchild of one of the most talented young creatives I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Isabella Torres, where are you? Isabella felt Ethan's hand squeeze hers under the table as hundreds of faces turned toward their table. She stood on shaky legs, smoothing down the midnight blue dress that Ethan had helped her pick out for tonight, and waved to acknowledge the recognition. Isabella's vision transformed not just our marketing strategy, but our entire brand identity. She understood that modern travelers don't just want luxury, They want authenticity. They want to connect with the places they visit in meaningful ways. The Live Like a Local campaign has increased our bookings by 40% and fundamentally changed how we think about hospitality. The applause seemed to go on forever. When Isabella finally sat back down, her hands were shaking. "Breathe." Ethan murmured in her ear, his hand warm and steady on her back. "I can't believe this is happening." "Believe it. You earned this." Across the table, Emma was wiping tears from her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," she mouthed. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, networking conversations, and celebratory toasts. Isabella found herself talking to creative directors from agencies she'd only dreamed of working with, fielding job offers that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. "You're in demand," Ethan said as they finally escaped to the hotel bar after the official ceremony ended. "It doesn't feel real." "It's real. You're officially one of the most sought-after creatives in the city." Ethan ordered them both champagne. "How does it feel?" Isabella considered the question. 6 months ago, winning an international advertising award would have felt like the pinnacle of her career, the validation she'd been working toward her entire professional life. Tonight, it felt like the beginning. "It feels like everything is possible," she said finally. "Everything is possible." They found a quiet corner of the bar, away from the crowds of industry professionals still buzzing about the evening's winners. Isabella kicked off her heels under the table and curled up against Ethan's side, feeling the familiar contentment that came from being exactly where she belonged. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan said, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "The Grayson Group presentation you coordinated last month, they offered me a job." Isabella sat up straight. "What? When? Why didn't you tell me?" "They called yesterday. They want me to head up their new creative division, basically build their entire advertising department from scratch." Ethan's expression was carefully neutral. It would be a significant promotion. A lot more money and complete creative control. Isabella felt her stomach drop. "That sounds amazing." "It does, doesn't it? Are you going to take it?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "That depends. On what?" "On whether you'd be interested in taking it with me." Isabella blinked. "What?" "They want to hire a team, not just an individual. When I told them I'd want to bring my best people with me, they asked who that would be. Your name was the first one out of my mouth." "Isabella, before you say anything, hear me out. This would be completely your choice, based entirely on your professional merits. They've seen your work. They know about the Carlton campaign and the Cannes win. They want you because you're brilliant, not because of our relationship." Isabella felt her head spinning. "What would the job be?" "Senior Creative Director. You'd be leading campaign development for their major accounts, building your own team, having input on client acquisition and agency direction." Ethan leaned forward. "Isabella, it would be everything you've been working toward. Your own creative department, major clients, the kind of budgets and creative freedom most people spend decades trying to get. And we'd be working together again. We'd be working together as equals, partners in every sense of the word." Isabella stared at him, trying to process what he was offering. 6 months ago, the idea of leaving Sterling Creative would have been unthinkable. Now, she was being offered the chance to help build something from the ground up, to have the kind of creative control she'd only dreamed of. "What about us? Our relationship? What about it? Would it be weird working together as partners instead of boss and employee?" Ethan smiled. "Have the last 6 months been weird?" Isabella considered this. The transition from boss and employee to partners had been surprisingly smooth. Ethan had been true to his word about keeping their personal and professional relationships separate, never giving her preferential treatment, but always supporting her ideas and celebrating her successes. If anything, their relationship had made them both better at their jobs. "No," she said slowly. "It's been amazing." "Then why would this be different?" "Because the stakes would be higher. We'd be building something together, putting our names and reputations on the line." "Isabella." Ethan took her hands in his. "I want to build everything with you. Our careers, our lives, our future. I can't imagine doing any of it without you." Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. "That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of opportunity. What if it doesn't work out? Then we'll figure out something else together." Ethan lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. "But what if it does work out? What if we build something extraordinary?" Isabella looked around the bar, filled with advertising professionals who had spent their entire careers climbing corporate ladders, playing office politics, working toward the kind of recognition she'd just received. For most of them, tonight's award would be the highlight of their careers. For her, it felt like the starting line. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let's do it. Let's build something extraordinary together." Ethan's smile was brilliant. "Are you sure?" "I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure." Ethan kissed her then, right there in the middle of the hotel bar, in front of half the advertising industry. When they broke apart, Isabella felt like her entire world had shifted again. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we go home and start planning our empire." "Our empire?" "Torres and Carter Creative." "Carter and Torres Creative sounds better. We'll flip a coin." Isabella laughed, feeling giddy with possibility and champagne and the complete certainty that she was about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. "Ethan? Yeah? I love you. I love you too." As they left the hotel together, Isabella caught sight of their reflection in the lobby windows. A woman in a midnight blue dress carrying a golden lion statue, a man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, both of them laughing like they'd just won the lottery, which in a way they had. They'd won each other, and the chance to build something extraordinary together, and the promise of a future that was absolutely, completely, perfectly unpredictable. And Isabella couldn't wait to see what happened next. The end.